There's a dead girl on Snapchat. Part 1. I got a notification last night from Snapchat telling me that a friend of mine had just joined. The problem is, she was murdered 5 years ago. Lydia was a good friend of mine from back in the day. She was part of our little group that would hang out. We would all go to the movies, out to eat, celebrate each other's birthdays, and so on. I'm not even sure how all of us started hanging out. At first, it was just 2 or 3 of us, and then the next thing I knew, we were rolling 25 deep to Cheddar's on a random Friday just because we had nothing else to do. Naveed joined our little group for a small amount of time, but mainly because he had a bit of a crush on Lydia. That's fine. You get a large group of 20-somethings together, and you're bound to end up with some coupling up. Most of that group of people from back then decided to marry each other. It seemed normal for Naveed to have feelings for one of the girls. Nobody thought anything of it. Well, at least until things started getting weird. It started small, with Naveed asking Lydia out on some dates. They went out a few times, but Lydia wasn't interested in him that way. She told him as much, but he didn't take the hint. When we went out as a group, he insisted on sitting next to her and would even get a little angry if someone else tried to take that seat. At some point, the two of them had a conversation where she told him it was time for him to back off and stop trying to make something happen that wasn't there. This led to Naveed slowly fading away from the group. The other people tried to keep him involved and even tried to hang out with him separately, but no such luck. Jorge was good at that. He genuinely loves being around people and spent a lot of time with Naveed, just the two of them hanging out. Of course, that stopped at some point too. On Valentine's Day 5 years ago, I got that terrible phone call that Lydia had been murdered. Naveed showed up at her apartment early in the evening with flowers and a stuffed teddy bear. Sunflowers. They were Lydia's favorite. He was waiting for her where she normally parked. She got home and a pretty heated discussion happened between the two of them. From what I heard from one of her neighbors at the funeral, she was trying to get him to understand that the two of them were never going to happen, and he was belligerently refusing to accept that fact. He pulled out a gun and shot her in the face right there. She died almost instantly. The next few months were a blur. We were all so devastated that something like that could happen to us. It seemed to come from nowhere. Between the funeral, investigations, trial, and all the emotional heaviness that each of those carried, it was no surprise that our fun little group slowly started to disband. Naveed is in jail serving a life sentence for first-degree murder. The girls that Lydia was closest to started a little memorial page on Facebook that still sees activity even after all this time. I'll still talk to a few of them now and then, but I've mostly started hanging out with a different group of people. Lydia still crosses my mind from time to time. I remember visiting her at the fast food place she worked at and her always hooking it up with a little bit extra food in my bag. We would always make plans to take our dogs on a date together, but it never really happened. Last night I was hanging out with some friends, just relaxing and playing some cards. I got a notification on my phone from Snapchat. Lydia P. has joined Snapchat. My stomach dropped. I stared at my screen for what felt like an eternity. My screen dimmed and I looked up and one of my buddies asked if everything was okay. I guess I had turned a little pale as every drop of blood fled from my face and seemed to pool together in my chest. Time seemed at a standstill as I tried to figure out what was happening. Oh yeah, I finally responded, I'm fine. Just the coffee. You know how it messes me up sometimes. I got up and went to the bathroom to relieve myself and splashed a little water on my face. The initial shock of seeing her name on my phone wore off, and I started to think logically. I still have Lydia's number on my phone after all these years. I've probably switched phones a dozen times since her murder, but her number is still in there. Sure, my phone will delete my mom's number when I get a new phone, but Lydia stays. Technology is confusing sometimes. The only logical answer is that the phone company reassigned her number and this person has joined Snapchat for the first time. I washed my hands, and with it, the initial terror I felt went down the drain. My buddies thought the story was creepy as hell when I told them, but there was still this nagging in the back of my mind and a pit in my stomach. Must be the coffee, I told myself on the drive home. As is the norm before falling asleep, I found myself switching from all my social media in bed. Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, maybe a little Tumblr, and if I'm bored, I guess I'll check Snapchat. I have Android and Snapchat is pure garbage on Android, so I rarely get on there. I had forgotten about Lydia's situation until the second I tapped that little icon. The app opened up to a dark screen as the camera tried to pick up my feet in my pitch-black bedroom. My dog was curled up at my feet, knocked out from playing with her Wooby earlier. There was a notification on Snapchat that let me know I had a new follower. I knew it was whoever had Lydia's old number, but found it weird that they would follow me. Sure, I still have her number in my phone, but how would this new person know who I am or follow me? I opened the notification and looked at her name next to that solid red ghost. My mind flashed back to sitting in the drive-thru and joking about how she was going to get herself in trouble for those extra 2 tacos. She was a great girl. Beautiful brown eyes and a smile that seemed to make the world just a little bit brighter. I did miss her. I tapped on the notification mainly out of a compulsion. I have to not have unread notifications in my apps. My dog exhaled in exasperation and jumped off the bed. I heard her scurry to her cage a little bit faster than she normally does when she's ready to sleep in there. She started panting pretty heavily. I turned to my left to look in the direction of her cage. She made this weird whiny/growl noise that I've never really heard her make before and continued to pant as though she had just come in from outside. My phone screen dimmed and I jumped a little at the sudden darkness. I ran my finger over the scanner to unlock and turn on the screen and got more blackness. The stupid app always reopens in the camera instead of where I left off. I was expecting to have a little light in the room, but just had the blackness of my camera trying to pick up my feet again. No, wait. The bottom left of the camera viewfinder had a weird haze to it. I moved my phone to the left with trepidation to see what sort of madness my phone seemed to detect. My thumb tapped the screen to make sure it didn't go dim again, and a small circle popped up to try and focus on whatever this strange haze was in my room. I couldn't help but shiver as my dog's panting got a little more intense and I heard her shuffle around in her cage. That's enough of this, I thought, and went to my friend list to see what was going on with this person who had Lydia's old phone number. Whoever they were, they had already posted a story or two. The small circle next to the name Lydia was black, and I could see some text there. Without knowing why, I tapped it. The first story was a video of what looked like a parking lot. It was hard to tell because the phone was moving so much, but I could see the yellow lines of a parking spot. The camera started to slow down a little bit and I could see what looked like dark red marks on the floor. My blood froze in my veins as I realized I was looking at the blood-stained parking lot of Lydia's apartment complex. There was a second of pause as the story reached its time limit and moved on to the next portion, still recording the yellow lines and red stains. My dog is frantic at this point. She ran from her cage and started scratching at the door, no longer wanting to be in there. There was no way I was getting up to let her out. I was not even sure I could do anything but grasp my phone with both hands. She jumped on the bed and whimpered at me, and then ran back in her cage to cower. The next story started. It was a bright white screen that hurt my eyes after being in the dark for so long. The camera moved back a little, and I saw the white fur of a teddy bear holding a giant red heart that said, "Life without you is unbearable." It was only on screen long enough to barely make out what it said, but I recognized it right away from the trial. It was the bear Naveed gave Lydia on the night he killed her. My screen went black again as the next story started, but only for a second or two. It lit up again, but this time yellow and black as my eyes stared at a large sunflower. I felt a tear escape my eye and seemed to exhale for the first time for what felt like hours. I had been holding my breath. I was suddenly aware of how cold the room was. My eyes moved frantically fast in their sockets as I looked at every detail of the sunflower. The story had been going on for a while now, as it was just a video of the same sunflower filmed over what was probably 2 minutes. I was captivated and couldn't take my eyes off the screen. Even blinking felt like a betrayal. Finally, the story ended and my screen went black. I heard myself whimper in relief. The next screen was what I saw in the thumbnail before I tapped on it. It was a solid black screen with white text that was comprised of only 3 words. He got out. I threw my phone out of my hands and ran out of my room. I could feel the hot bile in the back of my throat and tried to make it to the bathroom before it erupted out of my mouth. I didn't make it to the toilet and instead retched in my bathroom sink. Red vomit stained my sink and I jumped as I heard my dog begin to furiously bark. I crouched over my sink and tried to stop throwing up. When I glanced at my reflection, dimly lit by the small night light I keep in my bathroom, I could tell my eyes were bloodshot from the effort of pushing out the bile. I felt a wave of coldness waft through the bathroom and the vomit suddenly stopped. A couple of coughs and some mouthwash and I realized the coldness of the room was gone. My dog was still barking. I called for her to be quiet and she whimpered and I heard her cage rattle as she found her way back inside of it. It took me a while to work up the courage to go back to my room, but my logical mind prevailed and I came to the conclusion that someone must be pranking me. When I got back to my room, my phone was face up on the floor, still lit. The same story was on there. A black screen with 3 little words. As I stared down at it, the story changed to a black screen with 2 more words. Warn Jorge. Part 2, Lunch with Jorge. I called for my dog. That's the first thing I did after seeing that message from the dead girl on Snapchat. She was in her cage, still panting heavily. I sat on my bed and called her name with my happy voice. She jumped on the bed with me and curled in my lap as if the scariest event of my life hadn't just happened. A few warm licks met my cold hands, and I pretty much instantly felt better. I didn't realize what was waiting for me the next day. The mood in my house seemed to change from terrifying to calm almost as fast as it changed the other way. My room was no longer frigid, my dog was calm, and my phone was thankfully acting normal. I sat with my dog for a minute or two and gave her some much needed, for both of us, snuggles. I didn't want to pick up my phone just yet, so I wasn't sure of the time. It felt much later than it probably was, and fatigue hit me hard at that moment, but I knew I needed to clean up the mess I made in the bathroom before it started smelling. What caused my vomit to be red like that? It's never happened before, and I didn't eat anything that color, and it honestly looked like I had eaten an entire bag of hot Cheetos. I'm not sure how to describe the sound that came out of my mouth. It was somewhere between a gasp and a squeal. Almost like a small baby pig walking into its pen, and was shocked to realize that all the red vomit he threw up in the sink was perfectly cleaned up as if it was never there. My sink looked a little bit cleaner. I turned off the light and went back to my room, shutting the door behind me. My phone was still where I left it, its screen thankfully black. What sort of nonsense would I see if I picked it up now? How on earth would I explain this to Jorge? Did Naveed get out of prison? I was under the impression that he was serving a life sentence with no possibility for parole, so that has to mean he escaped somehow, right? Reluctantly, I picked up my phone and unlocked it. Snapchat was still open, so I was greeted with my feed as seen by my camera's viewfinder. I closed the app with fumbling fingers and realized how late it was. I would have to take care of all this stuff in the morning. Would I even be able to sleep? The answer is yes. I feel like I was asleep before my head even hit the pillow. It was weird because it normally takes me a while to fall asleep, even on a good night. In my dream, I was at the fast food joint where Lydia worked. It was bright and sunny. Lydia and I were sitting on the outside patio eating ice cream. Our dogs were both there with us. I was aware of this fact even though I didn't see them. We were finally having that puppy date we always talked about. "Why did you come to see me last night?" I asked. "You were much closer to so many other people in the group. Why not pick one of the other girls?" I can't explain it. I knew I had to tell someone, and I just knew somehow that you would listen. She cheerfully responded. "Plus, I know you can never put your phone down." She chuckled a little and put her hand on my shoulder when she said that. Her hands were colder than the ice cream, and even though she only touched me for a second, the day got darker. I asked her, "How do you expect me to explain this to anyone? You used Snapchat. The messages are gone. How are you even able to do this? Talk to me through Snapchat. And now you're in my dream? This can't be happening, can it?" Clouds began to roll in, and the cheerful look on Lydia's face grew grim. "You're asking all these questions that I don't have answers to. Ask me something else. We've only got a little more time. Did Naveed escape from prison?" "He didn't escape, but he got out. Why is he coming after Jorge? They were so close before all this happened." "That's exactly why. Why contact me?" "That's not the right question. I heard thunder in the distance. How come you didn't contact someone else?" I was holding a black umbrella above my head as more lightning and thunder sounded around us. I tried so hard. She held a white umbrella and tears began to fall from her eyes. No one else was even open to trying to hear me. They didn't care like you did. I didn't realize how much you cared. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She reached out to touch my hand and the rain poured at the moment of contact. I woke up in a cold sweat. Frustrated. Terrified. Confused. I couldn't move. I didn't want this to happen. It was making me feel things I forgot I felt. Of course, I cared for Lydia. I cared for everyone back then. Did I want there to be something more? Well, yes, but that always happened when a new girl showed up at one of our hangouts. I was a 20-something-year-old lonely guy who just wanted to have someone to love. No, I couldn't think about these things now. Sleep. I need sleep. Dreamless sleep, for the love of God, let me sleep dreamlessly for just a couple of hours. No such luck. I dreamt of a parking lot. There was running. A gunshot. I don't remember the rest. My phone woke me up. I must have slept through my alarm because the sun was already shining through my window. I could hear my dog doing her exasperated exhale at the phone, waking her up as well. At least that was back to normal. It was Jorge. Hey bro, good morning. Morning, Jorge, I sleepily responded. How's it going? I was planning on calling you today. It's great, bro. Jorge loved saying, bro. He said it excessively. Yeah, I've been wanting to meet up with you for a while. Do you think we could have lunch today? I sat up straight in my bed. That's perfect. Let's have lunch. My treat. I feel like I need some tacos in my life. Haha, yeah man, that sounds awesome. Text me where you want to eat and I'll meet you there at noon. We said goodbye and I quickly got dressed and ready for work. I mostly went about my day as normal. After posting the first part of this story on Reddit and seeing the demand for updates, I wasn't sure how to continue until everything else unfolded. We would have to wait and see until the end of the day and how my lunch with Jorge went. Noon rolled around and Jorge and I sat down for some tacos. We laughed and joked for a few minutes as we caught up a bit. I hadn't seen him in a few months, and he was still the bubbly, cheerful guy that had a joy for life that everyone wishes they had. So bro, he said, straight-faced, I'm not sure if you heard, but Naveed. You remember Naveed, right? He's the guy who shot Lydia. Murdered Jorge. The word is murdered. He murdered Lydia. I could feel my ears getting hot as he already seemed to be dancing around the actual truth. I feel like I knew where this was going. Yeah, that's what I mean, he responded. Well, anyway, I can see you're getting upset, so I'll just cut right to the chase. His lawyer was able to exploit some sort of legal loophole that I can't even begin to explain, but anyway, he got out a couple of weeks ago. It must have been weird for Jorge to see all the color drain from my face, because it certainly was weird feeling my complexion go pale. I got dizzy and put my taco down. My sudden craving for them seemed to disappear. Shame. They were good. What do you mean he got out? How did he get out? Where is he? How is this happening right now? He said, dude, calm down. You're asking all these questions I don't have answers to. I stood up, shocked to hear the exact words Lydia had said in my dream, its details flooding back into my mind. What did you just say? Jorge looked around the restaurant and grabbed my hand firmly. Sit down, bro, don't make a scene. I'm sorry, I don't know too much else. I just felt like you needed to know. I took a deep breath and calmed myself by sitting back down. I took a long drink of my soda, my hands trembling and my palms sweaty. Jorge asked me why this upset me so much, and I tried my hardest to explain what happened the night before. Jorge laughed. He laughed at the story. He apologized profusely, but he still laughed. He thought I was joking. I tried to explain to him how serious I was, and he sobered up and apologized again. The restaurant got cold. I felt my phone vibrate. I pulled it out of my pocket out of habit and saw that curious little ghost on my notification bar. Lydia is typing a message. My eyes grew wide as I showed Jorge my phone. His smile disappeared and I saw him physically shiver. Bro, stop. This isn't funny anymore. Who's doing this? I don't know, dude, I'm telling you this is real. I swiped away the conversation and opened up my contacts. I don't know why I didn't check this earlier. After scrolling to the names that start with L, I showed Jorge what I had suspected throughout the day but couldn't bring myself to check. I don't have Lydia's number saved in my phone anymore, Jorge. I thought I did last night when I got the first notification and that someone else just had her phone number now. But look, she's not in here. I must have deleted it or it got erased or something, I don't know. Look, Lydia told me to warn you, so I'm warning you. Don't talk to Naveed. If he tries to reach out to you, don't respond. I know you guys were close up until right before the murder and you felt like you were the only friend he had, but please, Jorge, don't reach out to him. I don't know what he'll do if he finds you. With horror in his eyes and one hand over his mouth, Jorge reached out to touch my screen. I could tell he was swiping down to the notifications and opening up Snapchat. I could see the yellow reflecting in his eyes switch to black and then white as the conversation opened up. There were some colors reflected on his face, now as pale as mine was when he told me Naveed was out. His eyes somehow got wider and I saw his lip tremble. As I turned the phone towards me to look at the screen myself, I saw a sunflower on the screen with red drops on it. The screen went black as it switched to the next story. 3 more words that made me drop my phone on the table. Don't trust Naveed. Jorge grabbed his phone and wallet and practically ran from the table. I heard him mutter something about having to get back to work and he made a beeline for his car. I was in shock and shivering for a few seconds before grabbing my phone and going after him. He was already fumbling with his car door and getting inside by the time I got there. Jorge! Wait! I called out in vain, pounding on his window. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and he put his car in reverse. I'm sorry, he said, it so quietly I'm not even sure he said it out loud. With that, he reversed out of the parking spot and sped off down the street. Before I could try to fully process this crazy lunch, my phone vibrated again. I was frustrated as I looked down at the next Snapchat story. 2 black screens with 2 messages from Lydia. Thank you, we're not done. Part 3, A Chilly Office. I stood there staring at my phone and wondering what else Lydia wanted from me. It wasn't the last time I was asking myself why she chose me to be her special messenger for all of this. Was I expected to get in contact with everyone from our little group and warn them? This is just crazy. I can't do that. Besides, I'm going out of town this weekend. I can't very well warn a couple dozen people of impending doom when I'm 3 states away. The rest of my day was non-eventful. I tried my best to keep my mind focused at work. Thankfully, there was a small catastrophe with a few students' Chromebooks, so I was able to stay occupied and distracted while I was still at work. There were several buzzes in my pocket as I was working on these Chromebooks, but I couldn't very well look at them while helping the students. When I was finally able to get back to my office, I pulled out my phone and saw the little ghost in my notification bar. My stomach lurched and I had the urge to just ignore the messages. As if knowing my thoughts, my phone buzzed again with a new story to open. I told myself that I couldn't check whatever it was Lydia was trying to tell me this time because the Wi-Fi at work had Snapchat blocked and my cell phone signal was too spotty in my building. It would take way too long to load. Plus it was already the end of the day and I was ready to clock out. I could just check it when I get home. I placed my phone on my desk, face down, and the room got cold. I looked out my office window and noticed the sky was darker. I knew what that meant, and frankly, I was pretty pissed. This specter from beyond the grave was just going to have her little temper tantrum, and I would deal with the cold spots and maybe a few flickering lights. I'm sure I could manage. Bad idea. I should mention that I work at a small high school with about 500 or so easily distracted students, so when the clouds rolled in and the rain started pouring seemingly out of nowhere, I could hear all the different classrooms around my office begin to get a little louder with chatter as they wondered where the storm came from. I placed my phone on my desk charger and decided to walk around the building and see what the general mood was. It was pretty weird walking out of my chilly office into a hallway with a normal temperature, but my office is normally colder than the rest of the building. I could hear teachers trying in vain to rein in their students from staring out the window at the strong rain that had begun to beat down on the building. A couple of the classrooms had the teachers themselves staring out the window in surprise. Rain had been in the forecast, but the skies were mostly clear for the first half of the day. Well, at least until I decided to ignore the ghost of my murdered friend. I made my way to the front desk and talked to a few of the people there about how crazy this storm was. One coworker was trying his best to hide that he was fiddling with the beads on his rosary. I was suddenly aware of how Jonah felt before deciding to go for a swim. I shivered as I finally got back to my office. It was downright frosty in there, and I could practically see my breath with each exhale. I closed my door and grabbed the hoodie I keep on my desk for when it gets too cold in there. Of course, it didn't help. Trying to work was no use because I was too distracted by my phone blinking yellow with what must have been a dozen Snapchat notifications. My pride and anger would not allow me to pick it up off the charger, and I could hear the storm getting louder and feel the degrees drop in my office. Just 2 days ago, I didn't have a superstitious bone in my body, and now here I was in an episode of Supernatural. Where were the Winchesters when you needed them? Fine, Lydia, you win, I exclaimed, probably a bit too loudly, as I grabbed my phone off the charger. I turned off my Wi-Fi so the stories would load on Snapchat. It would take forever because of the terrible signal in my office, but I learned my lesson. Always listen to the ghost before she turns into a vengeful spirit. The stories loaded almost right away because of course they did. Why would I think that something as trivial as a data signal would stop someone who was communicating with me from beyond the grave? The first story started as a dark gray screen. I could faintly hear Cheek to Cheek by Fred Astaire playing, but the audio didn't sound like it was coming from my phone. Have you ever had a pair of Bluetooth headphones sitting on your desk playing music while you hold your phone in your hand? It sounds distant and far away, like you're not sure you're hearing it, but you know it's there. Heaven. I'm in heaven. A sunflower appeared on my screen, bright yellow with dingy red streaks. And my heart beats so that I can hardly speak. A blurry, hard-to-view video of what looked like someone climbing a fence. And I seemed to find the happiness I seek. A thud of someone landing from the top of the fence to the ground, with some rolling around to ease the impact of the fall. When we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. Heavy panting. Trees. Bushes. Rushing by quickly. The ground rushes towards the camera as whoever is filming falls face first. They get up off the ground and keep running until they come across a small stream. The song continues to play lightly in the background. Oh, I love to go out fishing. Big hands reach down and grab the filthy water in a river or a creek. Water splashes the camera and I swear I can feel the moisture on my face. Maybe I'm just sweating despite the cold. But I don't enjoy it half as much. I hear a sneeze. It confirms what I was thinking. It's a deep sneeze. The sneeze of a man. I can hear the desperation in it somehow. It's one of those sneezes that rocks your entire body and makes you feel like every fiber of your being was just punched. I can see the stars you get in your eyes after that type of sneeze. As dancing cheek to cheek, the camera angles down to the surface of the water. I can see the ripples disappear slowly as a reflection begins to appear. I'm not sure how he was running from or where he was trying to get to, but staring at me was the face of a man filled with desperate hatred and malice. It was the face of Naveed. Part 4, The Realization. October 5th, 3:45 p.m. Just got home from work. I had to leave early after what happened in my office. I was pretty confused. Was it Naveed this whole time who had Lydia's phone? That would explain so much, but at the same time made no sense. Why talk to me of all people? I wasn't close to Naveed at all back in the day. And how else could I explain the dreams I've been having? No. I was convinced that Lydia was showing me what Naveed was doing. In a world where a dead girl is communicating with me through dreams and social media, it makes sense for her to somehow be able to show me what her killer is doing. I called the police on the way home. Boy, that was a fun conversation. I wasn't even sure how to begin explaining what I saw because I knew they would just think I was a madman. I ended up just leaving an anonymous tip that a prisoner had escaped from their facility and was possibly looking to kill again. I gave his name and charges, but I had to hang up when they asked how I knew this information. Hopefully, that won't come back to bite me in the butt. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. I just know I need a nap like I need my next breath. October 6th, 3:18 a.m. Lydia came to me again. Of course, taking a nap in the middle of the afternoon would lead to me waking up in the middle of the night. And of course, Lydia would show up one more time for a little conversation. We were at the ice cream shop again. The sky was overcast. I couldn't decide if it was because it's been that way this month or because the sky seems to reflect Lydia's mood. She was wearing all black. It was the first time I paid attention to what she was wearing. It was such a deep, dark black. The only splash of color was a smattering of crimson over her heart, but even that was so dark that it practically blended in with the black of her blouse. What the hell was up with that? I said in exasperation. I knew it was a mistake to show so much emotion, but it's a dream and I'm not exactly sure how things work here. It was me, but somehow I could see my point of view at the same time as I could see the two of us sitting there at the table, 2 bowls of melted ice cream in front of us and 2 dog leashes attached to our wrists. I'm sorry this is just as new to me as it is to you, she said, trembling. I didn't mean to let you see all that, but I was just there in your office and remembered where he was last night, and next thing I know, it's showing up on your phone. This is so weird. I know. My last memory is yelling at Naveed to leave my apartment complex and seeing him pull something from his pocket and a loud bang. I don't know if I want to hear this. I shivered in the coldness that rushed in from seemingly nowhere. And then I'm reaching out to people, trying to warn them that Naveed is coming. No one was even capable of answering. Just you. I don't know why. I don't know how. But you are the one who has to make sure he doesn't kill again. I grabbed her shoulders, devoid of any warmth, and shook her softly. Where is he? How am I supposed to stop him if you keep sending me these cryptic messages and strange dreams? Lydia covered her hands with her face and began to weep loudly. It began to pour, and an icy cold deluge that soaked me in a matter of seconds. I don't know, she screamed at the top of her lungs. I released her shoulders, and she turned her face to the sky and continued to scream those 3 words louder than humanly possible. The storm worsened with each repetition of the words, and I begged myself to wake up. I was soaked and shivering, hugging myself in a feeble attempt to stay warm while she bellowed out to the heavens that she didn't know where her killer was or how to stop him. Our 2 dogs started barking loudly. I forgot they were even there, but their presence was made clear by the tugging of the leash on my wrist. I couldn't take my eyes off Lydia as she continued to scream out, but the 2 dogs barked furiously. The terror in their barks was evident, and I wished there was something I could do to help assuage them. I knew I couldn't though, so I continued to stare at Lydia's haunting face as the wind and rain relentlessly beat down on us. I could begin to feel myself being lifted off the seat. Lydia, please. She finally stopped, but the storm did not. She looked me in the eyes with a coldness that I hadn't seen in any of our other conversations. Her pupils went solid white and her skin was a shade of gray. Slowly, the life began to slip from her face. Her skin began to sink in and deteriorate in front of my eyes. You won't see me again, she whispered over the storm. I messed up showing so much emotion. I'm so sorry. She was skeletal at this point. The rain stopped and I was somehow dry, but I shivered nonetheless. Please stop him. A soft breeze blew and she was gone. October 8th, 12:17 p.m. Not much has happened since I woke up from that dream. I went on a trip to visit my brother and his family. I didn't tell him about anything that happened, but he knew something was wrong and kept asking me a bunch of questions. I did my best to deflect them by saying I was stressed out at work. True to her word, I haven't heard from Lydia in my dreams or on Snapchat since last week. We only talked for a few days, but I miss her. Every time my phone buzzes, I check to see if she's reaching out to me. No such luck. I've talked to the police a couple of times with no luck or word on where Naveed is or if he's killed again. Jorge hasn't answered any of my calls or texts. That's what scares me. I have no idea if he's okay. I've reached out to a couple of other people from back then and tried to explain what's been going on, but they think I'm either crazy or cruel for saying these things. None of them have heard from Jorge either. October 11th, 6:30 p.m. It's hard to believe all of this has been going on for just a week and a half. The stories I've shared on Reddit have pretty much gone viral, and everyone keeps asking me for updates. I've got none. Lydia is gone again. Still, no word from Jorge, and the news has said nothing about Naveed's escape. I'm starting to think the whole thing was some sort of psychotic episode. October 23rd, 12 p.m. There was finally a story about Naveed. I set a Google alert for his name and got a notification earlier this morning. It said nothing about his escape. He's up for parole next February. Why is that news? Why aren't they talking about his escape? Ugh. Did that all happen? It was only 23 days ago, and it just all seems so distant. It feels like it was all a dream. I must be losing it. Lydia, please come back. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I yelled at you. I wish I could do more. I just want you to be at peace. I'm going to have to find him myself, aren't I? I miss you, Lydia. It's true. I had feelings for you. I don't know why I never said anything. I don't know why I couldn't even admit it to myself. You were so beautiful. Your smile, your heart, everything about you was perfect. I should have said something. Done something. Maybe if I had asked you out before Naveed, he wouldn't have fallen for you so hard. Maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have killed you. I'm so sorry, Lydia. I should have said something. Please don't be gone for good. I miss you so much. I messed up by never saying anything. But I'll make it right. I'll do anything to make it right. I know what I have to do. I have to stop Naveed myself. Do not ever go on Snapchat. Names were changed to protect those involved in the story. It's been a few months since my life has gone back to normal. Currently, I do not feel safe anywhere. I used to dorm at my college, but I had to go back home during the second semester due to strange occurrences happening there. I do not plan on doing it anytime soon. It might not be the smartest thing to share this since it's still under investigation, but maybe it will make people more cautious of social networking. It sure has made me weary of trusting strangers online again. November of last year was when the messages first appeared. Ever heard of Snapchat before? For those of you who don't know what Snapchat is, it's an app that lets you send picture messages to your friends, but they only last for a couple of seconds. Once those seconds are up, the picture disappears forever, meaning you can never see them again. You can only send pictures you take at the moment, and they can only be seen for the few seconds you time them. You can also draw and write text on the pictures. You can even send videos. I never really knew about Snapchat until I was introduced to it by my friends. They practically encouraged me to download it, and being the weak-willed person I am, I gave in to peer pressure. It seemed kind of fun at first. I was taking pictures and sending them like crazy. Most of the time, I just took pictures of myself making the goofiest faces and putting random letters for texts. I also went out of my way to take pictures of the funniest things. I remember taking a picture of this dude's butt crack while he bent down to tie his shoes. Yeah, it was sick but downright hilarious. There were a lot of people who added me as a friend on Snapchat. Most of them came from Facebook or the contact list on my phone. This also included some people I didn't know too well, but they still sent me pictures either way, and it was pretty nice. I guess Snapchat made it easier to break the ice with people I randomly added or haven't seen in a while. One day in November, someone called Where1_4EVR added me on Snapchat. At the moment, I didn't think too much of it. I figured it was just another one of my Facebook friends. Instantly, the first message this person sent me was a piece of paper with Sharpie handwriting on it and a heart drawn underneath it. It read, "Hey cutie, how are you?" Once 4 seconds had passed, the message had disappeared. I was flattered by the fact that whoever this person was referred to me as a cutie. I'm guessing it was probably a girl flirting with me a little bit. I sent her back a picture of me with my eyebrow raised and a smirk on my face. After that, I added the text, "I'm doing good. You think I'm a cutie," and then sent it to her for 5 seconds. About a few minutes later, I got another picture from her. The picture was of a teddy bear carrying a red heart with a white backdrop. The text read, "You are on my top 5. Right away, I wanted to know who this person was. For the next couple of days that we messaged each other, she never sent me pictures of herself. For some reason, she wouldn't even tell me her name. I kept pushing her to send me a picture, but she always made excuses or sent stupidly drawn stick figures instead. With that, I believed that she was either really ugly or really shy, and I was hoping for the latter. I decided to let it go, thinking that she must be into me if she was that secretive about revealing her face and even her name. One day while I was in the library, I checked Snapchat real quick while I was taking a break from typing a paper for one of my courses. Sure enough, there was a message from where1_4EVR. As soon as my finger tapped it open, I almost jumped out of my seat. She sent me a picture of a person, the first time she'd ever done so, but that's not what got me all bothered about this picture. I knew that the picture of this person wasn't her. It was a guy sitting on a couch. White shirt, blue sweatpants, looking straight into a laptop. Bookshelves in the background. The text read, "I see you." I looked behind and around me. No one seemed suspicious, just a bunch of college students in their little worlds. Still, I didn't want to read too much into it. After all, why psych me out from something that seemed like harmless flirting? I sent her a picture of me with this confused look on my face and typed out, "I don't see you. Why didn't you say hi?" The next picture she sent me was of a poster of my college mascot with the text, "I was so nervous. You're just too cute." From how I saw it, it just seemed like I had a secret admirer who possibly went to the same college. I sent her a message asking, "So you go to college name, too?" She never answered my question, even though she opened my message. Things just got weirder after that small incident. A couple of times, she sent pictures of me walking in lecture halls, eating in the cafe, making lines for food, and even talking to my friends. I don't remember all the texts, but some stood out to me like, "I see you everywhere, it's so funny how close I am to you, and one day, you'll know who I am." I started to think my friends might have been playing a joke on me. I asked my best friend Andrew one day if he was the one sending me all those weird Snapchat. He told me he had no idea what I was talking about, and I explained to him the whole thing, that this person called where1_4EVR had been sending Snapchat of me. Andrew said that was pretty creepy, and that I must have had some obsessive stalker who had no life. I was secretly hoping he was the one behind all of it, but I knew he was telling the truth. Where1_4EVR doesn't have the same handwriting Andrew has. Besides, the dude can't lie his way out of a paper bag. After talking to Andrew, I asked all my other friends about it, but they also told me the same answer. Either it wasn't them or they were playing an elaborate mindfuck on me. One of them had to come clean, but no one ever did. And the Snapchats were getting a little too eerie. My secret admirer started sending pictures of only me and nothing else. She rarely added texts to them anymore. It was like she was playing Where's Waldo with me, and oddly enough, I was Waldo. It became her mission to send a picture of me at least once a day. I began to pay more attention to my surroundings, but the only people I saw every day were my friends. I never saw the same face everywhere I went. I figured my friends had to be the ones messing with me. Eventually, I stopped sending messages to where1_4EVR, thinking it was best to ignore and pretend like it didn't bother me if it were them. I didn't mention the messages anymore, and I even stopped opening them. They just kept piling on whenever I went on Snapchat. The fall semester was almost over at that time. December came, followed by colder days and nights loaded with college assignments, projects, and final exams. Even though all of this sounded intimidating, I was a little relieved, to be honest. It gave me the excuse to focus all my attention on something more important than those messages. And yet, whenever I looked at my phone for the time or a new text message, I always saw a notification from Snapchat. Where1_4EVR sent you a message. After a week of ignoring them, I finally let curiosity get the best of me. Once I started opening one, I saw a picture of me, but when I blinked, it was already gone. I opened another message. Me again, but it disappeared as fast as the last one. As I opened those messages one by one, I could feel my heart sink deeper and deeper with each message. They were all pictures of me all over campus. I couldn't even fathom how this person was able to follow me from one place to another. She even took pictures of me during lectures and when I came out of the bathroom. That day, I decided to stay in my dorm room since I was starting to become paranoid. My roommate, John Michael, wasn't there for most of the time. Some of my friends were texting me to join them for lunch, but I was in no mood to come out and show myself to my secret admirer. She seemed to know where I was every single time. To avoid my chances of being another Snapchat message, I only came out that day to buy myself a sandwich. When I looked at my phone a few times, I was pleasantly surprised at the lack of Snapchat notifications from her. I was able to breathe normally again even though part of me was worried about going out. After all, I couldn't just stay trapped in my dorm room every day. I had classes to be in, friends to hang out with, and parties I wanted to go to before the semester ended. That night, I couldn't sleep. I felt more alive that moment than I did the whole day. I couldn't go to sleep when I had a million thoughts racing through my mind. Unsurprisingly, all those thoughts were related to those damn Snapchat messages. Finally, I fell asleep for what felt like hours looking at the darkness. The next morning, I woke up tired and not in the greatest of moods. I checked my phone to see the time. It was noon. Out of habit, I also checked Snapchat for any new messages I could have received. The more recent messages were from Where1_4EVR. Her messages took up all of my Snapchat. It had to be almost 50 she sent me. Seeing her username alone made my body tremble with morbid curiosity. Before I opened the messages, I noticed something was off about them right away. She sent me videos on the more recent Snapchat, which is something that never happened before. Also, the time she sent me those messages was about 6 hours ago. It made me extremely hesitant to open any of them, but something inside me was demanding me to do it. She had to be taking pictures of something else that night. I was in bed that whole time. However, once I opened her first message, I could not believe it with my own eyes and even thought for that second I was going insane. I wanted to scream. Immediately, I regretted my decision to open that message. Just thinking about it gives me chills alone. At first, I couldn't make out what the picture was. It seemed dark, but she must have enabled the flash option because there was a bright light illuminating the subject of the picture. Even though the picture was only for a second, I was able to make out what was in the second and third pictures, and by the 20th picture, my eyes confirmed it was someone lying on a bed. It made my heart beat unnervingly faster. Those were the most horrifying seconds of my life. As I kept opening these messages, they were the same pictures of someone sleeping. The more recent messages became closer and closer views of the person. The closer they were, the more they confirmed my fears about the person in the picture. And the videos, oh God. The fucking videos. There may have been only 5 videos, but they showed uncomfortable close-ups of that person's face in the glowing flashlight. And then there was that typical noisy silence audio in the background. And my sleeping face. It broke me down as I immediately dialed my college's police department. Told them someone broke into my room last night and that I was being stalked by someone I didn't know who was also sending me pictures of myself. Tried to explain as much as I could, but they couldn't even understand what I was saying because I sounded like a complete mess. They came over to check up on my dorm room, observe any forcible entry that could have taken place, and even questioned my roommate for an hour. I showed them my Snapchat to prove the multiple messages the person was sending me. Unfortunately, they couldn't retrieve them and see the actual pictures. I told my parents about it a week later. They wanted to pick me up as soon as possible even though finals were coming up. After I was finished though, I went back home and the messages had stopped for a while. I didn't see anything from where1_4EVR for the second semester of college. The police are still trying to find the perpetrator and are currently trying to contact the makers of Snapchat to retrieve those terrifying pictures. At that time, my life was going back to normal, and yeah, I was still using Snapchat just for the innocent fun of it. The last days of the semester, though, became a different story altogether. It was a typical Friday, and I was home alone, watching TV and chowing down on snacks. I just completed the last of my finals, so I was treating myself after all that stress from college and especially from that slightly traumatizing situation. But that all changed once my phone began to vibrate. This whole wave of dizziness took over me as I read what was on the screen. Where1_4EVR sent you a message. I was conflicted with what to do at that moment, and maybe I shouldn't have opened the message. Maybe I should have just deleted Snapchat from my phone and saved myself the trouble. Because when I did open that message, I was met with the image of my house in broad daylight. Not just my whole house, but specifically the view from the kitchen window. The picture only lasted for 5 seconds, and it was kinda hard to see due to its grainy quality. Yet, it was noticeable enough to detect myself sitting by the table, eating my cereal in the morning. Looking outside the window at what I remembered to be particularly nothing at all. Update: I've noticed lots of you have questions regarding creating screenshots/saving the Snapchats. I couldn't screenshot them before because I don't have that immediate press 2 buttons option. On my screen, I have to tap a little white circle that opens up certain functions, one of them to screenshot. However, it's really hard for me to do that and to keep Snapchat open at the same time since I have to keep pressing it. Back then, I wasn't aware of apps that can save Snapchat. When I finally was able to download SnapSave, it was during early summer. I was too late and Where1_4EVR wasn't sending me Snapchat anymore. Update number 2. Some of you requested proof for those dreadful pictures. I can't show them to you because 1, about 99% of them are corrupted, the ones that show me, at least, and 2, they're considered evidence for an ongoing investigation. The only picture I can show is a screenshot of Where1_4EVR on my friends list. This is it. There are those of you asking why I haven't deleted my Snapchat yet. This person knows what college I go to and where I live. We have to bust her/him/whoever so I can feel safe again. If I just deleted or blocked him per/whoever, then I won't ever know who is stalking me. They could even cause unspeakable harm to me, but it might not happen if their whack job selves are in jail.